What's the bar for sending Marines?
What I think it is, I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order.
Appreciate on the table, sir. Secretary
We got to see what we need. We'll send whatever we need to make sure there's law and order.
California Governor Gavin Newsom requesting the administration rescind their, quote, unlawful deployment of troops. He went on to call the president's actions, quote, those of a dictator, not a president. Now, police arrested at least 27 people yesterday. I want to bring in Terrell County, Texas Sheriff and retired Border Patrol agent Thaddeus Cleveland. Sheriff, it's always good to have you with us. Your reaction to what you've seen play out in Los Angeles over the weekend?
Hi, Cheryl. Good morning. It's great to be on with you. And, it's really unfortunate. We know the Trump administration has let it be very clear that they're going to go out and they're going to target the criminal aliens that are, living in not just sanctuary cities, but throughout America. And then to see people protest against what's going on. We live in America. We're the greatest country in the world. You can protest, but you have to protest peacefully. When they start getting out of hand, then they're putting, innocent citizens at danger. They're putting law enforcement at danger, and then they're putting themselves at danger. So, and I'm sure we're seeing other people that are using the immigration platform to come out and just act, crazy.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board has this piece out this morning about what we've seen play out in these images. Are just it's horrific what's really happened there. It says the deportation war begins. And it says that, Donald Trump's got a mandate, but protests in California show the trouble that might lie ahead. First off, you've got the National Guard troops, 2,000, they're now on the ground. But then you had Defense Secretary Hegseth saying that the Marines are on standby at Camp Pendleton. Do you worry that this could escalate to where you get the military, the U.S. military on the streets in a U.S. city?
That's something we've got to be cognizant of. We look back in 2020 during President Trump's first administration when the riots took off in Seattle, and I don't think we had a strong enough response. The federal agents there didn't have the support we needed. So I think the president learned from that first term in office what happened in Seattle and isn't going to let that happen again. But I also will say that the only part I've been critical of, look, I served in the U.S. Border for 26 years. I believe in border security. I believe in capturing those criminal aliens that are here illegally. But we've got to plan our operations in a smarter manner, not just drive down the middle of a city during daylight hours and create a ruckus. Are people still going to protest? Most definitely, but I think we can plan some of our operations better to make it safer for everybody.
Well, no, and it's up to the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California to maintain law and order in their cities. And if they can't do that, President Trump is saying, I will handle it for you, and hence the National Guard. I think my concern, and the reason I asked you that question, is just because of the safety of ICE officers, which we've already spoken about. Many are getting doxxed. That's why they've been wearing masks. They're getting criticized for that. And then the safety of our U.S. military men and women. I don't want to put them in harm's way, and I'm sure many, do not as well. So we'll see if the National Guard can kind of quiet things down in the streets of L.A. Today. It's only 4:40 in the morning there. I want to move on to this. Maria spoke with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul on Sunday Morning Futures about border spending and the big, beautiful bill. Watch this.
Are you suggesting that the money being spent on the border is too excessive?
What I'm suggesting is that we can add some money to the border, but what they're asking for is excessive. And for the fence, they want $46.5 billion. Well, I did the math on this. The current rate, according to the Border Patrol, is $6.5 million per mile. That would be $6.5 billion for 1,000 miles. Nobody's really estimating there's more than 1,000 miles that could be fenced at this point. So that's $6.5 billion versus $46.5. Where's all the money going? I would hire some new people. I would give some bonuses. I'd probably do half as much as what they're asking for, because the border is largely controlled right now. And what we don't want is, when we wind up looking back at this, have an army of Border Patrol agents that we have on the hook for payments and pensions and everything else.
So White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller responded directly to that exchange with Maria on X. Here's what he wrote. The United States has spent trillions subsidizing open borders and mass migration. But when we talk about providing ICE even a modest sum to repel the invasion, the RAND libertarians are aghast. As it happens, each deportation saves taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sheriff.
So, Cheryl, you look, President Trump, and bottom line is President Trump has done his best job along the border. Look, we're at record low numbers of apprehensions and gotaways. Now it's time for Congress to do their part, and I can assure you we're probably not going to get what the president's asking for. They're going to continue to put a Band-Aid on the border, and I've even asked, how are we going to sustain what we've accomplished in this short period of time under the Trump administration? We need Congress to come through. We need them to fund the border. Otherwise, it's just, again, going to be a Band-Aid put on the wound, and a next president, next administration could come in and completely unravel what's been accomplished, just like what we saw under the Biden administration. It's time for Congress to step up.
Yeah, and I would say create new laws, but the laws were already on the books, and the Biden administration completely ignored them when it came to illegal immigration, and here we are, especially witnessing what we're seeing out of Los Angeles and here in New York City. Sheriff Thaddeus Cleveland, thank you so much for being here. It's always great to talk to you, sir. We'll be right back, everybody.